Roundtable is all about, the role that financial companies should play in directing capital to environmentally friendly initiatives and being socially responsible at the same time. And we're looking at long-term returns which align with, the values and how do we mitigate risk in prevailing situations. There are many ways that the financial sector can support sustainability. And while we have the ESG criteria in place, right from investment decisions, green bonds, and most importantly, other sustainable financing options, it is the need of the hour to also integrate corporate reporting. And to create these measurable standards of performance will only help all of us sit around this table and create better metrics for this sector. So with that, there are also quite a few challenges that we, as part of the financial sector are currently, dealing with. And with your help, putting thoughts together, how can we look at prioritizing transparency where it is needed, accountability, where we can open up and have these discussions, and also fueling growth to continuous improvement. So with that, I would like to invite all of you to share your, points of view. We will also be having this recording, so, Aston, if you can also move around the room to get a better vision. And our aim is to also publicize your thoughts on a, global platform, international markets where we operate, so that we can go ahead together with COP28 and show that the financial sector, although initially weak when it came to sustainability, has moved ahead with rapid transformation.
Last night we were at Expo, and there was the official launch of the road to COP28, and it was managed and organized fully by the Arab Youth Center, by the high-level champion for youth, and it was mind-blowing to see the youth and the private sector and government through the different youth circles talking about solutions and their ambitions from COP28. So again, it's a pleasure to join knowledgeable speakers here and colleagues. And thank you again for inviting me. But before I talk about the private sector and SDG 13, let me talk just in a couple of seconds about the UAE. So as we all know, the UAE government is very forward thinking, and sustainability as a whole is imperative to the development of this nation. And that definitely makes our life easier in the private sector or on the non-state actors working on COP28. And this is exactly what President-designate of COP28, His Excellency Dr. Sultan Al Jaber, communicated a few weeks, even last night in his speech, and a few weeks ago in his Atlantic Council event, and last week in Sarah Week, where he talked about the UAE, which represents the first country in the region to have submitted its NDCs and developed a credible net zero roadmap, with at the pillar of it just transition agenda, technology, innovation, and both multilateral and multi-stakeholders partnership. And this is something I believe should be always a platform for any discussions when it comes to ESG or sustainability. So in line with the national drive to deliver the UAE's priorities and strategy towards COP28, but also we need to recognize the challenges climate change brings to the businesses as a whole, and the different stakeholders and the communities. Hence, the SDG Council on SDG 13, which is part of an initiative organized by the United Nations and the Prime Minister's Office of the UAE, where they created platforms and using the Sustainable Development Goals for the private sector to talk together and accelerate the achievement of the SDGs. So my responsibility is climate action, which fits really well with COP28 and the climate agenda. And we are trying, what we are trying to do is to mandate, if I can say, the mobilization of the private sector to move from commitment to credible action across the different pillars of COP20, be it mitigation, adaptation, finance, and loss and damage. So COP28, the highlight of it, we don't need to wait for it, which is the stock take. I think we all know that we're overshooting the target. So having said that, we need to talk about solutions, and we look at it as the solution COP. So every stakeholder has a role to play in the transition, especially as a country, an oil and gas country as the UAE. And the only way forward is to include everyone around the table, be it private sector, community members, youth, workers, investors, governments. All should be around the table to make it just transition. With that being said, businesses must at the same time leverage their resources and networks to send strong market signals, scale innovative solutions, present credible decarbonization plans, unlock climate finance, and advocate for a green and just transition. And of course, although some people may disagree globally, but ESG can be one of the enablers to do that. So companies must take responsibility for the transition and to achieve the climate action of their own operations, including us in the private sector, in their communities as well. We need to look at the triple bottom line approach of sustainability, planet, profit, people, especially in the global south. We need to look at throughout the supply chains, how we can impact and change things in the supply chain, learning from the great work we've done and the experience during COVID-19. So in line with that, the SDG 13, and we have members from the EBRDs, the HSBCs, the finance, the technology, IBM, Cisco, SAP, the Climate Change Envoy Office, PepsiCo, we have startups, we have the youth. So in line with that, we will continue to our work and provide the practical tools and guidance to the private sector. And that's an invite for everyone to join us around this, and will help. Again, Samira knows that we'll give access to the resources needed to set and reach ambitious yet credible targets. It's great to have ambition, but let's make sure that's credible, measurable, as well as achievable for the climate action. So in the lead to COP28 specifically, the SDG 13, we will be launching different programs among the private sector. One of them will be targeting the public sector into capacity building. The other one will be organizing a long-term platform on a couple of years on transition. What does it mean for the socio-economic impact? What does it mean for national oil companies? What does it mean for governments? And building on these programs, our learning will be shared across the region to scale it up. And of course, it will provide deep dives in mitigation, adaptation, just transition, and climate action across the supply chain. I personally have seen progress and mobilization through the global climate movements, and we must recognize that. That it's great to celebrate, but still, we have to confess that there is still a lot to be done. We need to continue with the momentum we gained in 2022 and accelerate our actions even more. We have COP28 in our own playground, so I've never seen it as close as I see it right now. I am very confident the discussions today and the dialogue will even enhance our collaboration and accelerate progress towards climate action and sustainable transition that leaves no one behind.
Banks and financial institutions, when we talk about ESG, it reflects the stability of an organization as well, because I think organizations that are borrowing this money, and the banks who are sort of in the investment houses who are investing in these companies, if they have a management team who have better handle on ESG, it's probably a good predictor of their being. So the first point is stability. The second point is also the transparency. In many jurisdictions, actually, a lot of it is voluntary reporting, and many organizations we find are opting for voluntary reporting because, they're saying, well, look, if we're doing this, we should talk about it, right? Why not share that with our shareholders? So many organizations have got good relationships with their stakeholders. The more you tell your stakeholders and communicate to them, and I said in my presentation that your reports, ESG reports, sustainability reports, whatever, you're publishing one report, but it's read by 6-7 different people. So you have to be very careful how you write that report. Not in the way that you have to cook the way that you write the report. You just have to communicate to the right people. And it's very, very difficult because when you make a movie, for example, you make it for a certain audience. When you write a report, you write it for a certain audience. Here you're writing one report, and that report needs to be communicated to 7 different people, and there's 7 different types of stakeholders have to. So that's the second point. And the third point, and I mentioned that the most important thing is that relationship between the financial institutions and the leadership team within that organization, right? The financial institution needs to be, and maybe this is towards more kind of what I would call responsible capitalism in the bank or the financial institution takes serious interest in how that organization is managed, right? Rather than, okay, I've given you this amount of money and this is the interest rate that I'm charging you and this is all I care about. It's very interesting how ESG is actually pushing the conventional banking systems more towards what I would call responsible banking. I don't call it only because it's not only Islamic banking is considered as responsible banking, but responsible banking where the bank or the financial institution takes interest. And I think ESG reporting is one way of building that. I guess the trust, between you and the lender.
Sustainability in business is now considered as a very disruptive thinking. We couldn't say that maybe around 10 years before, financial sector and sustainability was a very small niche, but now it has become such a transformational force, and it is understood that capital markets should not cross the planetary boundaries. So this is where the linkages to sustainability and financing, or I don't want to term only the word sustainability, but more on the responsible way of investing. And United Nations is one of the force that started driving it when the PRI, the public PRI was launched by Secretary Kofi Annan in 2005, and UN was one of the largest force that was driving sustainability transformation for the financial sector. But somewhere, as we have mentioned before, the awareness among the financial sector was not driven properly because UN is a very international body. They might have in each country local pockets, but the drive or it did not reach the intended users in a great way. Because if I list out what are all the actions that UN has taken for it, you would be surprised to know that how many of us would know that there are resources, there are tools, and there are policies and coalitions set by UN to promote sustainability in the financial sector. So the most important, I would like to start with something called the Financial Innovation Action Plan, which on 2019 they turned into the CFO task force. And the main objective was to give guidance and resources to the executives or the chief financial officers on how they can incorporate. Now UN used the term SDG, not much into the ESG, but somewhere it's all interlinked, into their business models. Then comes for companies, for investors, and for stock exchange as well. UN has specific programs for companies. For example, there is something called a tool called value driver model and collaboration platforms such as Global Compact Lead, where companies can come and take the resources and understand how they can remodel their existing business operations and how they can remodel the financial implications into sustainability. For investors, UN is striving to make investors understand and incorporate ESG through multiple platforms. The most important is the UN Principles of Responsible Investment, which, as I have mentioned, was launched in 2005. You have the UNEP Finance Initiative. Now, just take a look at the UNGC's website. There is a big resources available on finance, climate and finance, finance and ESG, finance and SDG. So that itself is a great learning platform. But how many of the financial sector are actually referring these or going through these, to understand how they can remodel their business? Even for stock exchange, when it comes, you can see that there are programs like Global Compact 100 Index or Sustainability Stock Exchange initiatives. So I could say that from the UNGC or the United Nations side, There are a lot of resources and actions that has been taken, but it is a responsibility of the organizations. For example, any organization can take a lead. Now, for example, Century Financials, you can take a lead in this and to ensure that all the resources and tools are reached to all the different levels of financial organization. So because UN is a very voluntary, it's not a mandatory requirement. So I think this would answer your question related to what UN is doing related to financial sector sustainability.
Well, to start with, sustainability, ESG is not anymore something luxury we do aside because we like it.
Yeah.
It's becoming part of your day-to-day life. It's becoming part of regularity, the regulations. It's becoming part of what your clients are requiring. Dr. Addah mentioned your employees. I do a second interview in Aramex after my colleagues, and the Generation Z and Generation X, they come to you and the first thing they ask you, are you a responsible business? What's your plans for the future? So it's becoming a demand rather than something you want to do because it's nice to do. And maybe 2005, 2006, yes, people were looking at you, hybrid vehicle, well, you are a good company. Now it's a must. Your investor is looking at it, your client is looking at it, your competitor is competing against you utilizing this subject. ESG is becoming part of any RFP we receive today. 3-4 pages RFP is only ESG. And they ask you for targets, and if they work with you, they'll come and audit you end of the year. So it's becoming a must. So for companies, it has to be part of the strategy. It has to be driven from the top, board and going down. You cannot hire an ESG officer and put him, or a sustainability officer and put him and tell him, go and work. It doesn't work this way. If the support is not coming from the top down, it will always fail. And challenges, there are lots of challenges. One of the challenges, for example, if I go a bit technical, technology is not available all over. So if you want to go and cut your emissions by having solar, if the regulation in the country does not support you to install solar, then you miss that opportunity. EVs are not there, you miss the opportunity. Regulations are not there. Sometimes you don't find the regulation that supports you to move in one direction, and it stops you from implementing what you have. Other obstacles or other challenges could be financing things, and as Dr. Addah said, we have to be transparent in financing. And I think if a bank gives a green loan to somebody, they don't continue with the loan unless they have milestones with KPIs, and the client should come back and say, I achieved this milestone, then they'll give the second part of the loan. Otherwise, give the money, greenwashing can happen easily, and I can get you any firm in the world and I can show them, I mean any consulting firm, and they'll give you the best report ever. So if I give a loan as a bank, I need to make sure that there are KPIs and measurable, and I can measure them as a bank before continuing and giving you the rest of the money. So this is how transparency works in this part.
Yes, and thank you for saying that the Dubai Chamber has been at the forefront of advocating for sustainability and CSR. It is a mandate. I had the Center for Responsible Business, which has been at the Chamber for over 2 decades. And initially we started with CSR and advocating for CSR, but how we do it? I think number one, raising awareness, and we watch what's going on globally. We look at practices like ESG, and we try to equip the business community with the best practices globally. So raising awareness, we do it through so many means, but also through capacity building. And capacity building is we help the business community through various modalities to acquire, improve, retain best practices to be a socially responsible and sustainable business that is actually at the forefront of the practice globally. How do we do it? We do it through events like this morning, I was at joint events with C Institute, where we were talking to the business community about the importance of capacity building and how do you do that inside the organization at various levels. And we do it through training. We provide training for the business community. For those who have been members of the CRB, I think Aramex has been a member. We also have Sustainability Network, or a network, let's forget Sustainability Network, a network of businesses, because the businesses know best the challenges they face. We are just few people. We listen to the business community and they say, these are the challenges we face. So provide them with a platform to solve the problems themselves. All what we do is a facilitator and a connector. And that has been going on for a lot of years. And we also have measures like the one we've seen, the SDG index. You won't be surprised that something like that might come from the chamber. Because what we're trying to do with the business committee is to help themselves bench themselves against the best practices globally, but also internally. And it's a journey that we follow with best practices. So overall, we help the businesses, we raise awareness about best practices abroad, globally, and also try to build the capacity for the business community. And we know, I think I was very, very pleased to see the word maturity, because we know here we have multinationals, large organizations, SMEs, and we have business that top management is really committed. Maybe in some organization, maybe not. They might need some at least basic literacy in sustainability and ESG. So we try to take all this organization together through mentoring. So we have organizations that are really mature in sustainability to help others who are starting the journey. So with this portfolio, we are trying to, I think we're very, very happy to see what the CSR journey of the Business Committee of Dubai, but I think there are more challenges ahead. The landscape is changing very, very quick and rapidly in so many ways, and we try to have the business community grasp this, develop practices, embed them in the organization to be obviously the best place in the world to practice business in a socially responsible and sustainable way.
Corporate governance is a critical tool to advance, I believe, E&S. How we manage E&S is very important, and governance provides that support system. Looking at it holistically, ESG, I think everybody's touched on it, on how integral it needs to be in the business, woven into the core fabric of the business. And really, in order to do that, it needs to be at the highest level of the organization. And really, this is where the board's role comes in. Our role is to bring ESG into the boardroom. That's been my mission for the last couple of years. For a number of reasons. I think in order for ESG to truly generate value, it needs to be, one, understood and part of every decision-making process, not an add-on, not an afterthought, not a mitigating tactic, but at the heart of every decision, have we considered the ESG risks, but at the same time, the ESG opportunities, and have we leveraged that? And this, I believe, needs to come from the boardroom and then trickles down a top-bottom approach throughout each department and so forth. Also, another thing we try to do is we associate performance against ESG targets throughout the organizations. Traditionally, it's always been on the bottom line. And this is where the financial sector and us seem to push back a lot. It's not just about the bottom line. It's about the triple bottom line. And how do you drive the triple bottom line? How do you drive performance towards that with incentives to the team, executives and board members? So for us, it's also embedding ESG KPIs for that we can measure senior executives' performance against.
Our industry, or in my company, if I'll be precise, some of the initiatives like what we have taken is like the document management system, the DMS. Like if you come to my office, it's totally a paperless office. We have a lot of agreements, like around 80 to 90 partners, and then you have to renew it every year. Those kind of initiatives which we have taken and we have implemented it. And the thing is the adaptability to getting used to it. It is for the staff also, but they will slowly and gradually they will get used to it. Second, which we have taken for our customers, as I earlier said, that we want to go into a digital remittances. So you don't have to come to that brick model and you have to drive and you have to spend fuel and come to the location. You can just simply send the money using your mobile phone. But again, it's about the time, about the adaptability, about the consumer behavior. The digital receipt is one initiative which we have taken. It is with the regulator to come back to us and to give us an approval. And the most important is we have taken an initiative is about the currency-less. It's the cashless currency. The hard cash is banknote is something. Not only let's not talk about the environment, it's about the hygiene also. We never know from where it is coming and from how many hands it has come and it has come to us. So we have, and thanks to COVID, that COVID made us some of the good things which came out as like this currency, we became more aware about that. And the second, like the digital meetings, we all started having it. It was there before, but then COVID has forced it, like that. Okay, I think 80% of the meetings which globally are happening is now digital meeting. So we don't have to travel using some public transport or our own cars. So that has moved. But now coming back to my company, that we are coming up with some travel card. We have tied up with companies like Mercury and MasterCard. So what we'll do, like if you are traveling from Dubai to, let's say, London, you are going, so no need to carry those hard cash, the pounds and all with you. You just take a card and you can use it online. That option we are giving you. You can swipe it on a POS machine and you can use that. Plus, if required, you can take cash also out in London. So these are the initiatives which we have taken. But as I said during your presentation, my belief is that it has to be that stick approach. We have to have it now, because the time has come. Until unless we don't have that approach, the regulators get strict, and then it also becomes the KPIs. ESG also become the KPIs for the corporates. They will take time to get serious. Otherwise, it's just like a window dressing. You have a CSR budget, 2%, 5%, done, finish. So they need to make it mandatory. You have, especially in the finance sector, you have audit committees, compliance committees, risk committees. You need to have these ESG committees also, and then the somebody who could from the board can chair it and report it to the board, so that it trickles down, as you said, from the top to bottom.
Thank you very much. Basically, ESG Bina is the first lobbying platform. We are a knowledge platform. We're not a press release platform. We believe there is a severe lack of substance and ESG knowledge across the board. We can see that the information and the knowledge across the gentlemen and ladies sitting in this room very robust and rich. However, it's not the case all across. So you can still see people across DIFC or ADGM that their knowledge in ESG is still very scarce. So we're very committed to spreading awareness. We're after all those basically thought leaders in ESG, so they relay their knowledge, what we have seen here in this room, to the broader audience across the financial sector and non-financial sector. So, for example, yesterday we were at the Al Futtaim launching their BYD EVs, and we just pushed for the introduction of electric light commercial vehicles. And not only that, we're pushing even for the sub. We asked Siemens about solar charging stations. So that's even another one step there. For the hotels, for example, as you know, last week there was a law for pushing the hotels energy to report energy. So we're creating an alliance with the Global Sustainable Tourism Council to develop that. So it's all about relaying the information of the thought leaders, of ESG thought leaders, that are very, very few. We're hunting them one by one in every part of the MENA region, and it's a very, very tiresome exercise, I can tell you. Very, very few ESG practitioners or thought leaders like Dr. Waddah, like everyone here, like Raji, like everyone, each in his sector and subsector. And that's one. Two, also, we are very much focusing on education. We will be the first to offer, in partnership with other basically parties, top-notch global parties, in-person ESG block courses. So we're partnering either with PwC or Abu Dhabi Global Market or with Hawkama, Dr. Ashraf and all others to offer, or the CFA Institute, for example, in the UK, to come and bring, instead of you do an ESG course with Cambridge
online. We believe that in person is way better. So we're spreading also education, not only training courses, certified courses. So we'll be offering just before ATM, Arabian Travel Market, the certified courses from the Global Sustainable Tourism Council. So someone will come for the first time coming to the Middle East and promote. So it's not only at the top level. I myself was the marketing director of a top private equity firm that crumbled, that went bust, and I warned because of that. So I'm aware of all this and what it coincidence. And also there is something that I would like to mention. ESG reporting alone is not sufficient. My assistant or my account handler is now the global VP of ESG at Credit Suisse. And she called me yesterday and she told me, what's going on? I told her she generated a top-notch world-class ESG report because the Swiss way, she's Swiss, in Zurich, reporting this. However, as you know, Credit Suisse is going through a very difficult time. So I told her, because you didn't have another layer of security, that is due diligence and other aspects of this, you didn't raise like what I did at the private equity firm. And also, we're basically pushing, the UAE is very active and the region in terms of startups. It's a very attractive world. So we are very promoting bootstrapping. So basically, like us as ESG Bina. When I approached ESG Bina, basically two gentlemen who are very much associated to the management consultancy, they told me it's not viable. So I decided to sell something, asset that I have, and I launched ESG Bina. And it's very important to be very distinguished because it's high quality. And here we are. I did apply bootstrapping myself. And I believe this is very important because we need to protect the startup ecosystem in UAE. No one has thought about this. And I raised the flag, here I am. The ecosystem, the startup ecosystem in UAE is a big question mark. It's in danger. And so not in danger as in danger, there is a potential bump, like to say.
In the legal profession, I, as a legal firm operator, I have a legal consultancy firm. And I think, inshallah, I feel happy talking about that we would be, inshallah, one of the leading, firms in ESG soon. The way, we've been focusing on this, and we're trying to bring in what legal elements of ESG must be practiced in different corporates. So while we talk about ESG and sustainability, sustainability is the outcome of ESG. When you have your metrics, your indexes properly achieved, you reach the goals you could claim to be sustainable. So the objective of sustainability is to promote initiatives that are legally within a frame. UAE has done a fantastic job. Multiple regulatory frames have been set up. ADGM has come up with their set of sustainable regulations. DIFC has come up with their index, with their self-assessment matrix. ESCA has come up with a regulation which requires all the PJSCs to ensure a mandatory filing. But ESG is not just about these reportings. There are multiple activities within the legal side that a company must ensure. What kind of policies do we have? What kind of documents do we have? What kind of internal disciplines do we have? How are we matching with respect to the categories on environment side? What social requirements is the company matching? What governance policies the company has set up? Whether there is a data protection policy that has been accurately implemented in the company, whether there is an AML policy that has been accurately implemented in the company, whether there is a CSR policy that has been implemented in the company.
Code of ethics.
Sorry?
Code of ethics.
Code of ethics. What are anti-corruption policies? So together, each and every element of ESG will have its own regulatory requirement, will have its own legal requirement, will have its duties. So I say, when we talk about sustainability, when we talk about ESG, it is not just a tick box that we do and just move on. It's a legal responsibility. As a company operator, as a business head, we have to ensure that we have the policies in place, we are within the regulatory frame, we are adhering to the regulatory frame, and we ensure that it is properly implemented from top to the bottom. So there is a regular awareness that is created within an organization with respect to each and every aspect of ESG.